a quick note this morning. When I did a year-long apprenticeship with Evolve New Play, we learned about 4 kinds of games: finite and infinite, zero sum, positive sum. Finite and infinite, pretty self-explanatory. In a finite game, there's a score that ends the game or changes the game. In an infinite game, it's continuous. There's no points per se. And you're learning more about the feeling of the game, or I don't know, you're playing within the game in a way that, for instance, we did an infinite game with Neon Belly today. The top person pinned the person on the bottom with their knee. And if the bottom person knocked the top person off, then the top person just hopped right back on. And the top person was getting a feel for how the knee, how can reposition themselves and contain the person on the bottom with their knee. Whereas if we just did hold for 20 seconds or something and then stop, it changes the way the top person plays, because they have to be told they can't give up their knee. They can't give up any position. There's no room for error. If there's room for error, then you can transition. You can reposition. You can step back and come back in. Then there's, so positive, finite and infinite games. Then there's zero sum and positive sum games. In zero sum, there's a winner and a loser. In positive sum, high tide raises all ships. And this kind of happens, there's multiple levels of these games, honestly, like in a place like a jiu-jitsu gym, or on your basketball team, right? On your basketball team, you're competing with your own team in practice. You're scrimmaging against your own team, and there's winners and losers. But even if you lose, that you want your own players to be as good as possible. So maybe you're okay with losing, and maybe you're even being okay not being a starter because you're helping build the team. Maybe you're the first person off the bench. Maybe you don't play at all. But people kind of fail to think about how if you don't have enough people to scrimmage with at practice, you're going to be worse. Your team's going to be worse. So there's finite and infinite games or there's positive sum and zero sum games. Losing to your own team at practice isn't a zero sum game. Ultimately, it's a positive sum game because you're making your own team better. And maybe you can win some games that are more important down the road. You could even look at it like this. Even basketball teams, rival basketball teams, one team wins, one team loses, of course. But if it's a great game, it goes down in history. It becomes something bigger than the game itself. And maybe people use that game from other basketball teams as a reference point to learn about offenses, defenses, things players did in pressure situations. And the whole sport of basketball elevates. Even if one team's winning, the whole sport elevates because people have to learn how to beat that team. And I just kind of wonder if our religion can be that way. If we can learn from each other in a less guarded way. And this is extremely difficult to do. I'm not going to lie that this isn't a challenge. This is extremely difficult to do. Viveki said that the problem with modern religion is that there's no in between. Now, of course, individuals can evangelize and talk to people from different religions, and the Mormons show up your door and the Jehovah's Witnesses show up your door. And sometimes even evangelists of different, of just more mainstream Protestantism. But it kind of still feels, no, maybe it's not a zero-sum game. Okay, so there's combat, of course. There's combat verbally amongst two people. There's apologetics. But sometimes you kind of get to know your opponent. You know what I mean? You get to respect your opponent. You maybe even befriend them because they fill in your gaps of knowledge and they sharpen your own sword. So is it a positive sum game? Do religions sharpen each other? There's that old cliche that the monks of different religions. You know, they vibe together, get together because they don't have to be so specific about dogma, and they're focused more on mystical experience and the experiential of religion. And that it's the pastors and the priests that argue. Because they have to hold the structure. They have to get the doctrines right. There's a flow and a crash. You got to learn the fundamentals before you can break them. You got to learn a stance before you can go away from it, so you have this home base. And I focus on the positive sum. When I was too rigid and was playing zero-sum games with religion, it was impossible for me to hear other people's perspectives. Even a perspective like an interpretation of the Dharma wheel that helped me understand that life is a broken wheel. Life is suffering is actually life is a broken wheel. I got 2%, so I got to wrap this up. Socrates said, when two people talk, a third thing becomes known. High tide raises all ships. Even in zero-sum games, there's a positive-sum game that emerges. Doug Wilson who's a kind of militant Protestant man, used to, I think, travel with Dawkins. He used to travel with Dawkins, and they'd put on debates together. There's something in that. There's something about the opponent and you sharpening each other that I think maybe we should just make more obvious, or maybe that we should create more affordance for. Because no doubt I learn from other people. I learn more from people that disagree with me than people that agree with me. By contrast, just by contrast, think about that. The stars are brighter against a dark backdrop. I'm not saying I'm the star. I've been the dark backdrop plenty of times. Think about that. How can we play positive sum games with people that disagree with us and with religion in general?